right, Kelly Schuh, nice to have you with us. Thanks for coming today to the Limitless Women podcast. And I think you're calling in from Colorado and it's windy there.
It's very windy here. 100 up to 109-mile-an-hour winds.
Uh,
Woo! Little chaotic outside.
I was talking to Shane on my team this morning, and he was saying they had you guys had like hurricane gale winds, and I'm like in Colorado. What it's when the hurricane went through and wiped out. A good friend of ours lives in
Yeah.
Asheville, North
Asheville,
Carolina.
yeah.
Yeah, and it was like, what's happening? Hurricanes, Asheville. The world is shifting and changing so interestingly. So you're safe, and you've got electricity, and we're able to talk, which is good.
Yes,
Good.
absolutely.
Very, very good. All right. I love to start an interview, Kelly, with an opportunity for you to tell your origin story. What brings you to the work that you're doing today? Kind of what was your personal journey in your own leadership and your own evolution that had you, you know, make some big life changes that I think you're going to share about with us today. And I think it'd be really fun. And we'll lead into more of what you're up to and some of the stories that from your trip to Africa. I want to hear more about that. So tell me kind of how you started and what got you to the place you are now.
Yeah, I mean, my origin story, so the doctor comes from chiropractic, so I've always been about alignment and flow, and, I'll take you back to 2010, which is when I was pregnant with my daughter and had a successful chiropractic business. And I basically had morning sickness on steroids.
Mhm.
So I couldn't treat my patients. I was basically bedridden. So I sent all of my patients to a colleague of mine. And during that time, it was a great awakening for me because the business that I had, bricks and mortar, my patients, needed me each and every week. And being a new mother, I wanted to be able to have flexibility. And there was this thing called the internet. And, this idea of having more of a global presence and leveraging my message and my gifts. And so the word that came in one day was impact. And I really wanted to lead a life of more impact, more than I could get my hands on people's spines. So that was 2010. And then fast forward, I'll take you back to not very long ago. I've been, working as a coach and a speaker for many years. And this word impact keeps on showing up. And I believe in flow and serendipity. And it was November of last year. And I sat down at about 10 o'clock at night to do some goal setting. I cleared my whiteboard that had scribbles of the year before. And so created that white space and started mind mapping and the goals. And I was meant to get together with a friend of mine. The next morning she canceled.
Mhm.
And so I reached out to another friend, said, let's go for a hike. So we go for this hike. I hadn't seen her for about 6 years. She'd been living in England.
Mhm.
And we sat under her favorite tree and she said, I said, Annie, how are you really doing? With the passing of your
Mhm.
father, what's really going on? And she said, well, my father's dying wish was to build a school for children in Africa. And I got full body chills.
Mm.
And I said, I want to be a part of that. And I think
Nice.
we should take a group of female leaders and entrepreneurs to climb Mount Kilimanjaro, and it'll be a climb with a cause. And let's raise money to build that school. And in that moment, Killy with Dr. Kelly was born. And
Mhm.
within 24 hours, I kid you not, I have a screenshot at 11:11 on 11/11/2024. I was speaking to the guide that was going to lead us up that climb. So I believe in serendipity, and the two circles from the night before, one said climb a big mountain and the other one said align with a nonprofit. So less than 24 hours later, it all came through.
Fast, fast. I love
Real
that.
fast when you're crystal clear.
Yeah, I love when that happens. So let's go back to your origin story, which is
Yeah.
like really what had you go into chiropractics? What had you choose medicine? Did you always know that you wanted that as a young person? I asked because our son's in medical school now and he's in year 3 and he's doing his rotations and can't wait to see
Okay.
him this week. But, it's a big calling. He's actually 33. He's a geneticist and worked for 6 years doing cancer research before he went back to medical school. So it's a big commitment to become a physician. Tell me about how that happened for you.
Absolutely. So that also has a quick turnaround. So I always knew as a little girl that I wanted to be in medicine.
Mhm.
And in my undergrad here at CU, studying psychology, I had a wobble of, I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure, I think, but I'm not really sure. And then, fast forward, I was actually in Texas of all places studying for the MCAT in my, would have been late 20s, and I was working for a doctor, and he was old school, and he didn't really believe in, protective mechanisms like the goggles and, like, all the things he really
Mm,
should it's
okay.
and when you're, like, 20-some years old, you're not gonna, like, challenge the old doc. I
Right.
had some blood go up in my eye.
Right.
And I freaked out, and I looked at the charts, and this patient had had hepatitis, and I went home, freaked out, jumped online, questioned, "What am I doing with my career?" It clicked out chiropractic, and my soul knew in an
Interesting.
online quiz that it was more aligned with me, with my love of meditation and
Mhm.
yoga and the inner journey, and, so it was another kinda quick soul knowing.
Yeah, yeah, and it's such a beautiful area of medicine. We have good friends, Dr. Nanalea Diamond and Michael Diamond, who had, I don't know, something like 80,000 patients go through their practices in California. They were really large, different, diversified practice. But I think, it's such a different way of healing, and it is a spiritual conquest, right? Like you're really looking at the holistic approach to body, not just the spine. We think about chiropractic, so we think about the spine, right? But there's so much
Exactly.
more to it. So I love that. So you had a mindful journey before you
Yes.
did what you're doing now. Yeah.
Yes.
Good, good. And so tell me about kind of what's on the agenda for you moving forward this year. What's on your heart? What are you passionate about for 2026? We're recording this in 2025 and the episodes live. I think our first episodes are from 2020. So, who knows when somebody will get to hear this, but tell me what's going on for you now.
Yeah, so I really am leading now with embodied feminine leadership. I think we live in a time, and not even just a time, I think we have had decades of female leaders that are leading through the lens of a more masculine energy.
Mhm.
I believe that we all
Love
have masculine energy and feminine energy, right? So I'm
that.
not speaking to gender, I'm speaking to energy.
Mhm.
And I ask a question consistently to women who I see as leaders. And I ask them, who is your role model for divine feminine leadership? And let me preface that
Yeah.
leadership through the lens of presence, through the lens of someone that you feel that balances hustle with grace, intuition, guidance, presence, white space. And
Mhm.
many women, when I ask that question, their mind goes blank. And I think that we get to create a new lens of what does it mean to be a leader as a woman or a man with a balanced, not a
Mhm.
burned out way of being in the world, not a Nike just do it,
Yeah.
all about action and grind and what leads to women in burnout and health crisis. So that is my passion, and I've developed a body of work over decades now. I want to find and create this new wave of embodied feminine leadership. And so that really is my stand now. And to have, I
Good.
believe that women, when we can be balanced, we can actually solve world problems when we're not burned out.
Mhm. Interesting. Yeah, a couple of people come to mind to make introductions for you that
Okay.
really that lead embodied feminism. So I think that can be some good connections for you this year with what you're up to. And it's interesting. I was just what came to mind too is that when I hired Marsh Engel, who wrote the books Amazing Women, they're like these little. I don't have one right here to show you, but prior to writing my first book, I had picked up this it's like a Hallmark book. You know what I mean? These little cute ones
Yes.
about women, and you might even have one, right? And I had bought it for my daughter, and it's she had it in her closet, and I mean, gosh, this is back in 15 years ago, so she was like 10. But it was so inspiring to me. And then I met Marsh, and one of the things she asked me to put a caboose on this train of thought, Kelly, was where are you feminine in your life?
Mhm.
And it was an interesting question for me at the time. It was before what we know today as Limitless Women really became that brand 10 years ago. But prior to that, when I was leading Powered with Passion and Passion, Purpose, and Profits, I had never done women's work. I had never worked in rooms with, I was often the only woman in the room, right? And I'd owned my own companies and I'd been very successful as a real estate professional. And so it was just an interesting thing thinking about all the places where I had been kind of what I felt like as a man trapped in a woman's body often, right? Like, having the drive,
Absolutely.
having the focus, having the momentum to go forward and not sitting around talking. I think my idea originally of feminism was like women sitting around a fire singing Kumbaya. I was like, who's that person? Da, da, da.
Right.
But
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's very ironic, and God has a good sense of humor for it to lead me here, where my work has become fully women's work now, and the healing that that's provided for me has been really beautiful. It's really,
Yeah, deep healing does become possible. And so some of the language that I'm using now with this body of work that I've developed over decades is called the grace codes. And the
hmm
grace codes are four basic, well, they're four steps, they're four R's that allow us to ascend in leadership, to create breakthroughs. And the first step in the whole thing, and it was mirrored in my Kilimanjaro climb, is the first step is to release and to
hmm
let go, which is very feminine and probably quite hard for alpha driven,
right.
successful women.
hmm
And we're saying stop and let go and release. And
hmm
so, can I share the story of what happened on Kilimanjaro?
Of course, please.
Yeah. So for those who don't know about Kilimanjaro, the route that we took, it was an 8-day climb. And so you're climbing and for hours and hours and hours on end. There isn't a whole lot of feminine journaling and reflection. There's no time. You're like eating,
Yeah.
climbing, and sleeping. And that is Mount Kilimanjaro for the expedition we took. And so we'd been hiking for 7 days, and now it's summit night, which is the big night. They wake you up at about 11 p.m. and give you breakfast for preparation of the long climb. It's a beautiful full moon night, and we're climbing up this mountain. And we've been hiking for about 5 hours, and the team is pretty exhausted.
Mm-hmm.
And on the climb, it's like if one woman has to go to the bathroom, we all stop. So we were on one of those stops,
Right.
in twilight, and the lead climber came up to me and he said, "Trevor," and he said, "Dr. Kelly, can I carry your pack?" And I said,
Mhm.
"No, no, I'm fine. I'm good. I'm feeling strong."
Okay. Yeah.
And I look around and no one else is climbing carrying their pack. And I
Mm.
had that moment of reflection, like, is this ego that's all okay? Is this
Yeah.
like,
What's
uh,
wrong?
what is the point of the climb? Is it to get to the summit and carry a heavy pack? No, the point is to summit. And
Mm.
so he came back to me as I was reflecting. He said, "Dr. Kelly, let me carry your pack," with that masculine authority of like, this isn't an option. And
Mhm.
I yielded and I happily gave him my pack. And it was that moment where everything changed. And I think of leadership and what is required for us to meet our summit. First off, 5 women, 28 porters and guides. It took a
Mhm.
village
Wow.
to get us to that peak. So that's the first thing is like you never reach the peak by yourself. And
Yes.
who I needed to be in that moment as a leader, I had to let go what I'd been carrying,
Mm.
so this idea of like having to carry too much weight. And I look back upon the leadership in the team. I had been carrying way too much in other aspects. I built the website.
Mhm.
Led in marketing. I did all the things. And I didn't really allow myself to lean into the team as much.
Mhm.
And so the inquiry is what do you need to let go of? What do you need to release? Which baggage are you carrying? Because you know what? Once I released that pack, I was free. And
Yeah.
that journey was so much easier. So that's the first step in the 4-step process of the grace codes is release.
Good. Is there an R for receive?
There is. That's the fourth one. Very intuitive. Yeah. So I'll tell you
Well,
what all the
yes.
fours are.
Yeah, well,
It's
let me just
release.
let me just say that that's what I find to be one of the hardest awarenesses for women.
It
That
is.
the idea of Trevor coming to you and offering support and having you say, "No, thank you, I'm good."
Yep.
Which, reminds me of a story when it was before my husband's open heart surgery. One of my girlfriends said to me, I was in a mastermind group, and she said, "You always come in, you're such a great giver, but whenever somebody wants to do something for you, you block it." And she said,
Yes.
"You know that receiving is a form of giving." And I said, "Giving is a form of receiving?" She's like, "No, you can't even hear what I'm saying." She said, "Receiving is like the act of someone gifting you something, like
Mhm.
you give them the benefit of that, right? By receiving." And I think often, Kelly, and we could have this conversation, we're in a women's space, when I'm speaking to an audience of women, I say, God designed the act of creation to happen when we're receiving, we have vaginas for a reason, right? To think
Exactly.
actually have to open up and allow ourselves to receive, to create creation, right? And in a beautiful way, not in a way that is not healthy, but in a healthy way, creation can happen in that moment. So I think it's the idea that receiving is a form of giving and bringing that forward. I'm not surprised that's one of your tenets as well.
It is, and it actually I think it's one of the hardest for women, and it is the 4th step in the ascension process, and, receive is that willingness to let go and to feel worthy. That's where the Worth and Wealth Alchemist came in years ago, is I realized my body of work has been around women and their worth,
Mhm.
and worthiness is that willingness and openness to receive, and, yeah, how many of us are blocking the
Right.
support the "I'm okay, I'm strong, and, yeah, the universe wants to support us, and if we were to yield to it, our lives would look incredibly different, and you're right, it's a gift to be able to learn how to receive, and, it can be really challenging for a lot of women.
Yeah, well, I think about how, it was for whatever reasons, my friend Starry said that to me in December of the year before. I chose to pray on that and really meditate on that for the next year. And I prayed to be shown how to be a good receiver and really went through that whole time. And I'm really grateful that I did because then when my husband was diagnosed terminal, I had to receive. I mean, I just needed to just be with him and be focused on keeping him well and alive and getting through the processes of his surgeries. And it just was, if I hadn't allowed myself to be supported. And fast forward, his heart surgery was in April. I walked into a room in July that was full of women. My team
Oh
had
my
left
gosh.
the event and it was done. And it was interesting. We had rebranded. This is kind of a divine thing, but we'd rebranded our money, marketing, and sales secrets and changed the name to Flow. And I
Mm.
walked in, and we talk about flow. I mean, I walked into this room in La Jolla full of women, and it was just the most graceful moment, right? It was really humbling to be there and be in that experience. And so my praying to learn to be a good receiver worked out okay.
It
And
worked out, and I love that we have so many synchronicities in
yeah,
some of the language that we use, because the style of chiropractic was born out of something called network spinal analysis, which is more energy based,
yeah,
and my mentor named his style flow. So that was the style of chiropractic, and then you have this podcast, right? The Limitless Women podcast, and this is before I knew you and the
yeah.
language you were using, and, we had an event called Living the Limitless, and
Yes,
then
I
launched
remember that.
a 9-month
Right.
immersion into really what does it mean to be in flow.
Yeah, so good. So good. Yeah, I think again, it's almost like all the different traditions, right? I was thinking about my team who's in Pakistan and they're off next week because it's Christmas. I'm like,
Yeah,
happy holidays, my love, right? And they have their own holidays and they have their own way of finding God. And it's just so precious to me. And I think thinking about you being in Africa and talking about the Maasai people, and there's so many ways to get to the same place. And it's interesting to step into our leadership to take the opportunity to give. So I'm really inspired with what you've created already. I just
thank
know
you.
great things are coming for you in this next year and beyond. And just keep doing the work that you're doing. Is there anything that you'd like to share with our audience, a way that they can stay in touch with you? Tell me how we can do that.
Absolutely. The easiest way to connect with me online is Dr. Kelly Schuh, and that's, on LinkedIn, on YouTube. We have the Worth International YouTube channel. And I would like to gift your audience something, which is my time, which, as you know, as a businesswoman, it's like it is precious. And I think that if you're listening and resonating,
Mhm.
I would like to offer you a powerful and present activation. It's an opportunity for us to hop on a call, and we'll have the link in the show notes, but what does it mean to lead from that place of presence, from that place of embodied feminine leadership? And in that call, really getting curious to what is it that you're like, I was blocking
Mhm.
that support that was already there and I couldn't see it. So my intention for you on that call, and the powerful and present activation call, would be to us identify just one area where we could really help you 10x this
Mm.
idea of receiving without hustling, grace over grit. So I know I shared that in the show notes. So that would be one way that I can really serve your community of if they could just be more aware of one thing that could help them 10x through the lens of grace, that I would love to be a support in that.
Thank you. And so is there outside of speaking with you individually, is there like an online gift or a way they can connect with you and get into
Absolutely.
you have an email list or a
Yeah.
more way that we can connect with you?
Absolutely. So, human design, we did not talk about this today, but it is a cornerstone of my work when I really help a woman to rise, making sure she's in alignment with her success blueprint. So, you can go to queenofworth.com
Perfect.
forward slash chart, and you'll receive your unique human design blueprint so that you can start to get what does that fingerprint look like, because everything needs to build from this place of what is your natural state of being with your greatest gifts. So that's something that I can give for free so that you can look at that blueprint and build your whole business and your whole life around your unique blueprint, because there's nobody else like you on the
Right.
planet.
Yeah, very cool. Very, very cool. Very
Yes.
cool. Well, I thank you so much, and I hope that you have, because we're recording right before the holidays, I hope you have a beautiful holiday season with your family, and I'll look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thank you so much, Laura. So happy to be here.
Thank you.
Are you a limitless woman? This is your personal invitation to learn how you can join our online community, grow through our business school, and play with us at our live events. Go to limitlesswomen.com for all the details. That's limitlesswomen.com. Thanks for joining us.